welcome to this NorthCap Masterclass, a series of talks wherein you get to listen to eminent thinkers, scholars, and leaders sharing their perspectives on what's going on in the world and what it means for you as future professionals. Over the past 25 years, the NorthCap University has been a meeting ground of talented students and faculty. Our graduates are well accepted all over the world, as I never tire of repeating, by leading companies and by top universities abroad. For one reason and one reason only. At NCU, we are firmly invested into the future. A glance at our specializations that we offer in engineering, management, and law will powerfully illustrate this. From cybersecurity to artificial intelligence to virtual reality to digital marketing to latest trends in jurisprudence and law, we cover it all. And the same intent drives our recent collaboration with Arizona State University, the first of its kind in India in coverage, breadth, and depth, all designed to bring the latest education to you, the student. You may ask, what is our core belief? Our core belief is that each one of you can make a difference in this uncertain world of ours, that you will play a role in improving the life of the common man. At NCU, you will discover the two A's required for this, the aptitude and the attitude, to make this difference. In this masterclass series, we look through the eyes of those who made such a difference. We see the situations they faced, how they grappled with their circumstances, and how they made the difference. And today we have a guest who will illustrate what difference making is all about. At the turn of century, Dr. Reddy's Laboratories was a small pharma company in Hyderabad, one of the many in the field. Today it is a large player known worldwide, and we have with us Dr. Saumen Chakraborty, who has been integral to that story. Let me introduce him. Saumen Chakraborty is currently advisor to Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, driving strategic initiatives including business development. He was earlier president and chief financial officer at Dr. Reddy's. He has played a significant role in the evolution of Dr. Reddy's as a global pharmaceutical company, championing several best-in-class initiatives and global best practices that contributed to making Reddy's one of the most respected employers in India. As Chief Financial Officer, he led Dr. Reddy's ADR listing on New York Stock Exchange and formulated active treasury and mergers and acquisition strategies. On the technology and business process front, he has driven key initiatives such as the implement of the My SAP ERP Business Suite and S4 HANA, creation of the Vikreta Connect platform, and achieving execution excellence through simplification of end-to-end business processes in product development, manufacturing, and supply chain. Saumen has won several awards: the Best CFO in the Large Enterprise Healthy Balance Sheet Management category at the Business World Yes Bank Best CFO Awards 2016, CFO of the Year by International Market Assessment in 2016, India's Best CFO with exemplary all-round performance in the 5th Annual Business Today Awards in 2014, and CNBC TV 18's Best Performing CFO in the Healthcare Sector Award in 2007. He graduated at the top of his class in physics from Vishwa Bharati University, MBA from IIM Ahmedabad, and PhD from ISB Hyderabad. He enjoys coaching, mentoring, and teaching, and is passionate about excellence in everything with honesty, courage, character, and commitment. Today, we'll chat with him to listen to his journey, his perspectives, and his insights into the opportunities that exist today. We will do this for about 30-35 minutes. Once you have followed what he has to say, you may write in questions for him in the Microsoft Teams chat, and I will ask them on your behalf. Saumen, welcome to the NorthCap University. Let me begin by asking you about your journey as you transformed Dr. Reddy's into the powerhouse that it is today. Over to you, Saumen.
Thank you, Billy, and thank you for saying so many nice words. And welcome all the students at the beginning of your journey, a very exciting journey in next few years to your professional career in the industry. Now, I just happen to be again donning the hat of a student for last few years, where I was doing the course in ISB, ultimately completing my dissertation only during this year. So before I tell you about my journey in Dr. Reddy's and how Dr. Reddy's has evolved as a global pharmaceutical company, I think it will be a good idea to give you a little bit of background of what happened in India and how the entire globalization movement started. So you all remember in 1991, India really opened up to the global economy. So before that, there have been some companies who were considered to be performing very well within India. But as late Professor Sumantra Ghosal put it, it was like satisfactory underperformance because there was no global competition, there was no global benchmark. So it was all in a protected economy, one, had the advantage. So never really lived up to the global standard. So after opening up the economy in 1991, two of the sectors which were the early adopters of global benchmark and in a journey towards globalization was the IT sector and the automotive sector. Now, I happened to work in both these two sectors earlier in my career. So I remember there was trade, like even McKinsey in early 90s, told the entire automotive sectors either, and there are so many, automotive component manufacturers in India. Now they said that either they will become global, then it will be only a handful of them who will become global and will survive, others will perish. So it was a matter of survival. But IT industry did phenomenally well. So by the turn of the century, as Milind was mentioning, India earned its reputation as an emerging IT player in the global area. And few of the companies they were leading were even today, like TCS, Infosys, Wipro. So there was a lot to learn from the IT industry when we started our globalization journey in pharma. So coming back to Dr. Reddy's lab, actually this was founded in 1984 by late Dr. Anji Reddy. But there were two different companies. One was Dr. Reddy's Laboratory, another was Kemina Drugs. Now both were founded and the chairman of both the company was Dr. Anji Reddy. But there were two different focus. Dr. Reddy's lab was having, and only common was the API, that is active pharmaceutical ingredients, which is called also bulk actives in the pharmaceutical industry, which is actually the ingredients which gets into manufacturing of the finished doses which we consume. So this was common across the two, but others were different. In Dr. Reddy's, there was focus on branded formulation business in Russia, CIS countries, and APAC countries. Where in Kemina, the focus was on the regulated market then in Europe and USA. Now, these continued till around 2000, when actually one found that there's a lot of synergy in merging both these companies and create one single enterprise. In the quest for journey into becoming a global pharmaco, this was the first step which was thought will help the company in attracting good talents, attain a critical size and mass to be noticeable or visible. And so they marched in 2000, and it became Dr. Reddy's Laboratory, and it got listed in the New York Stock Exchange. Now, this was the only pharmaceutical company from Asia outside Japan to get listed in NYSE. And even till date, there is no other Indian companies in the pharmaceutical sector which is in the NYSE listing. Now that gave definite visibility to Dr. Reddy's lab. But still, in the year 2000, where each one of Dr. Reddy's and Kemina were less than 100 crore company. But the financial year 2001, the combined entity became a 200 crore. It was less than 50 million. Those days, dollar was about 40 rupee or less than that. So actually, it was translated less than 400 crores. So then it became combined around 800 crore turnover in FY 2001. In dollar term, it was 200 million turnover. And the profit was roughly around, say, 12 to 13% of the turnover. This was the situation in FY 2001. And after the merger, when they completely reorganized the company into an SBU structure, there was a need felt to hire new chief of HR. And in those days, I was working in automotive industry in Tecumseh as a head of operation. So they reached out to me to join as a global head of HR for Dr. Reddy's because they wanted somebody with some business understanding to help transforming this company into a global enterprise. So I joined in 2001. And one of the first things I did was to get a reputed peer firm to conduct a survey on Dr. Reddy's reputation across the constituents, means the potential employees from where we need to recruit talents, and also the industry peers. And the result of the survey, it revealed that forget about being a global company, Dr. Reddy's was not even perceived as a pan-India company. It was predominantly perceived as a company based out of Hyderabad with much lesser visibility across other parts of India. And even its top management was not known to more than 10% of the population it was surveyed. So one of the first thing that we thought it is very important that if you have to really be a global company, you need to focus on getting the best talents in the company. And we'll have to do that across the globe, not only in India. So that's why it is very important to create an image where people will be ready to come and join the company. So we thought we will go for becoming one of the best employer in the industry and even across industry and create an image. And intellectual capital is one part of the human capital, and that is the talent. But there are two other distinct components, which are emotional capital and social capital. So an emotional capital you can actually talk about is the commitment part. It is not only the talents you get, you need tremendous commitment from all of them, but also the relationship, which is part of the social capital. So we thought we will focus as a part of people initiatives within the organization to focus on all three dimensions, and then go and attend several conferences, several places. For example, we used to go to SES in USA or FASAB, which is for biologics. SES is for chemistry. We used to put up stall there and try to create an image. So in 2002, actually, we went to various IIMs and even to Harvard to recruit MBAs. There was, doubt within the company whether people will join Dr. Reddy's or not. You'll be surprised, in 2002 campus, we actually offered 14 across the three IIMs then, A, B, and C. And all 14 of them joined. And in Harvard, we offered 2 and both of them joined Dr. Reddy's. And a few of them still working in Dr. Reddy's and got into the management council of Dr. Reddy's. They were recruited by us from the campus then. So they have been witness to this, journey that Dr. Reddy's experienced. But let me tell you how it has been a roller coaster ride. So Dr. Reddy's had a lot of fast to its credit in those days. Till 2000, it was predominantly an entrepreneurial company. There were a few people within the management. They were very good entrepreneurs. Some of them actually branched out of Dr. Reddy's, started their own company, and they have been doing pretty well there as well. But learning from the IT industry, we thought only being entrepreneurial will not help us to scale up. If you need to scale up, we need very robust processes. And those are not easy. For example, R&D scientists, they would have never felt the need for a process. They would have never even thought of running a project management in a project management approach being followed by the IT industry. They all were thinking that R&D is something which is very intuitive and nobody should be controlled and everybody should be left free to do whatever one feels like. Now that works very well if it is a small company, but it becomes very people dependent and it becomes very difficult if you really want to scale up. So we felt there is a need to put a project management approach and also put processes in various places. And Dr. Reddy's was one of the first to get a 6 months exclusivity in USA for a drug which in generic industry it is called abbreviated new drug application, ANDA. It got approved. This was an innovative drug called Prozac of Eli Lilly, which the generic name was fluoxetine, 180 mg. It got approved in calendar year 2001, that means in FY 2002. Now that one single drug, because it had 6 months exclusivity, where the only competitor was the innovator, there was no other generic competition. One single drug got 100 million revenue. So just imagine, in FY 2001, the overall company turnover was 200 million. And I'm talking about that time, dollar to rupee was around 40 rupee. And one single drug getting 100 million revenue. And also, the profit coming out of that 100 million is more than 100 million. Now, how does it happen? Because the margin was extremely high, more than 99%, because the cost of this drug was pretty small. And then India had an export incentive. So actually, you would have got more than the revenue as profit. So for a $200 million organization in a single year, if you get $100 million in revenue and profit, which we got in FY 2002, there was no way one could have matched the performance in 2003, because after the exclusivity period of 6 months, there were a lot of competitions coming in. The price would have dropped. A significant price reduction would have happened. Because normally, if there is a solo player in the US generics market, the pricing is around between 70 to 80% of the innovator. The moment there are 2, 3, or 4th competitor, it comes down to 30 to 40%. The moment there are more than 10 competitors, the pricing comes down to almost 1% of the innovator price. So virtually, from 100 million revenue for the next year, from that product, you cannot even get more than 1 million revenue. So there was no way we could have matched the 2002 financial year performance in 2003. So there would have been a roller coaster ride. But we kept on expanding our footprint. Like when I joined, there were only 6 people in USA in one small office in Upper Saddle River in New Jersey. There are only 4 people in Europe, again outskirts of Paris in France. And there were a good number of people in Russia and CIS, maybe around 80 to 100. But the global footprint was not so high to really get into different parts of the world and establish your presence there. We kept on expanding, and in the process, with this roller coaster ride, the major change happened in 2006, where 3 things happened. One, we acquired a pharmaceutical API manufacturing facility in Mexico, in Cuernavaca, Mexico, from Roche. That product they were manufacturing got genericized, and innovator company didn't know how to really compete at a generic industry where price is substantially lower. So how to really even produce in a very, very cost-effective manner. So they wanted to sell it off. So we bought it. So that was one. Second, that was again, we are one of the first to get an authorized generics. We had an approved ANDA for Zocor, which was by Merck. The generic name was Simvastatin, which is a cholesterol-reducing drug. So we became authorized generic of Merck. And as an authorized generics again, in that single year, we would have clocked revenue of more than, say, $350 million. Of course, that lasts only for the period because authorized generics concept came to actually neutralize the impact of 6 months exclusivity. That means it will not be solo competition. There will be two players. One is the exclusivity holder, other is a generic player authorized by the innovator company. So, and then the third thing happened that we actually acquired the fourth largest generic firm, which was Beta Pharm in Germany, which Germany again in the generic industry in terms of the revenue ranking, USA always comes on the top and then followed by Japan. But in Germany, in terms of ranking, that time also was the third largest country in terms of the revenue. So we thought we will get into Germany and we took this route of acquiring Beta Pharm. So with this three acquisition in 2006 calendar year, that means in FY 2007, we broke into the league of $1 billion revenue company for Dr. Reddy's. And again, in terms of crores, it will be slightly above 4,000 crores, not more than that. But in terms of dollar, it was $1 billion. Now, for example, it took 23 years for Dr. Reddy's to become $1 billion, starting in 1984. Maybe the fastest in India to become $1 billion would have been Infosys, since its foundation to when they became. So in pharmaceutical industry, the growth was phenomenal for Dr. Reddy's there. But then the Beta Pharm acquisition backfired. Because when we acquired Beta Pharm, the Germany was a branded generics market. Much like what is India today, there are so many brands for a single molecule. The doctors prescribe a specific brand, so people go and buy that. For example, a molecule is say omeprazole, which is an antacid. Now, Dr. Reddy's brand is Omaze. So if doctor prescribe Omaze, then people go and buy Omaze. But if doctor prescribe another brand, which is by another company, they will go and buy that. Now, a branded generics is where you can get some premium because of the brand that you have. So Germany was a branded generics market. But within a few months, it completely changed, not from branded generics to a generics, which is in USA and UK and various other places, but into a tender-driven market. That means the entire power of the industry shifted from the doctor to the insurance company here, who started calling the shots. Those times, those insurance companies were not doing well. Today in Germany, the insurance companies are real big players. They have massive, net worth and thing because they started dominating the pharmaceutical industry. So since change from branded generics to insurance, the entire acquisition really backfired for us. We spent quite a bit of money to acquire Beta Pharm, but the value of Beta Pharm got lost significantly. So even though we became $1 billion company pretty fast, but we struggled with the Beta Pharm debacle in the next few years. So by the time we became a $2 billion company, we had to wait till 2013. Again, based on a lot of product development on the portfolio that we built, not only in API, but also various finished doses, various kind of finished doses forms, and started expanding globally. In between, this particular dilemma came to our mind that whether we should focus on breadth or we should focus on depth, because we were actually selling APIs across the globe, but finished doses maybe to around 50 to 60 countries in the world. We said, can we really do justice? Because we will not have substantial depth, there are a lot of compliance challenges, and you cannot have a leadership position in so many places. So can we really focus on a few countries and try to establish leadership position? So this dilemma was there. So initially we thought we should go for more depth rather than breadth. So we actually, instead of selling directly, we withdrew from several countries and we're just exporting to whoever wanted to import from us. but basically started focusing in around 20 countries across the world. Then the basic challenge which the entire Indian pharmaceutical industry faced is from the regulator, which is the USFDA. Now, they regulate the quality standards and what drugs can be imported to USA. So there are various regulatory authorities across the world, and USFDA is one. In Japan also, they are very tough regulator. In Europe, there are, and UK, they call it MHRA, and in Brazil, Elvisa. These are the five. They are the very strict regulators, but there are every country will have its own regulatory agency. They come and audit the manufacturing facility, R&D facility, and only when they actually give clearance, you can, submit a product for getting approval, and you can actually export from India those products to those countries. Now, earlier MHRA used to focus a lot on science rather than only strict rules, but USFDA was very rule driven. Like in audit standards also, we used to have the IFRS vis-a-vis the US GAAP. In IFRS, there was a lot of focus on substance, but US GAAP was very rule driven. Similarly, US FDA was very rule driven. So there was a particular thing called CGMP, current good manufacturing practice. So everything was defined, and as long as you follow those rules, as long as you can show them that in terms of intent, you don't have any wrong intent, then you would have got a clearance. But USFDA started charging some fee from the generic drug users and to generate some fund for themselves, and they started recruiting a lot of scientific talents. So they changed their approach from simply compliance to a quality by design and ensuring that the quality is assured not just by intent. That means instead of showing that nothing has gone wrong, you'll have to prove it, nothing can go wrong. So this is a trend which none of the Indian manufacturers really picked up early. So come 2015 or so, most of the companies started getting warning letters. Because to prove that nothing can go wrong, either you'll have to have a high degree of automation, or there has to be a mistake proofing. In Japanese term, it is called pokayoke. You'll have to really have a mistake proofing, and it's not only a function of automation or robotics, but also a lot of culture which has to happen, whether every person who gets in touch with the product has to really, think, patient-centric, understand that whatever drugs get consumed by patient is a matter of life and death, and accordingly adhere to the highest standards of quality. So while things were going pretty well, I think like many other companies, even in Dr. Reddy's, we faced a lot of quality challenges. So which really slowed down the growth, and we had pretty tough time between 2016 and 18. And then by that time, we really revisited our entire process, our QBD approach, and then we got all our plant again approved by USFDA, and again it has started getting back into the profitable growth path. And that's how the Dr. Reddy's as a company, the journey evolved. Since I told you that I joined Dr. Reddy's as a global head of HR, so my initial years was all about building a culture. We are one company that we even wrote down a desired culture statement, and we put some of the elements of the culture. I mean, it will be not only entrepreneurial, innovative, but we will also be process driven. We focused a lot on meritocracy and diversity. We wanted to build an egalitarian culture where there are access available to people, information, and resources to everyone. So it was really very, very open door. And actually, we changed our offices. We made it so accessible, like most of the IT, even there are open space kind of thing. So that helped in culture. So those were my initial years in Dr. Reddy's. But in 2004, I was asked to lead the IT and business process excellence function, which later we renamed as digital and process excellence. So this is something I always had with me, irrespective of whatever hat I donned in Dr. Reddy's. But 2006, when Bitafam was acquired, which was done by the previous CFO, was the first CFO in Dr. Reddy's, who continued from 84 till 2006. He wanted to become president of Europe and he moved there. So I actually was offered the position of becoming a CFO. And I had only 1 year of experience in finance in my career in iShare, that also in one of their division as a divisional finance head. And with that only, I was given this responsibility. I took it as a challenge. So I kept the CFO and as well as the IT and BPE then. But we realized in 2009 that there are a lot of silos which has developed in manufacturing, regulatory, quality, and R&D, which was not helping Dr. Reddy's, even though we defined all the processes. The cross-functional processes were getting slowed down. So I moved out of CFO position and became the head of what we call a global generics operation. And there we integrated all these four: manufacturing, R&D, quality, and regulatory. So primary purpose was to break the silos. And later on, we created a business segment, which we call a global generics business segment. So I came back to corporate again, but I kept the quality with me till 2013, when once again I became the CFO along with digital process excellence. I had a second innings in HR for a brief period, but I started handling legal and compliance as well as facility and management part of it. So these were my portfolio till last year. And then I became an advisor. As an advisor also, I was heading the biologics business for some time, and now I'm focusing on business development. So this has been my journey in Dr. Reddy's in terms of playing different role at different time whenever it was called for. And it has been a very exciting journey. There were, in terms of the talent, we can really boast about getting the best talents available in the industry from across the world. I still remember once I was traveling with my chairman and he was reading a magazine and he just showed me a photograph of GSK, which was a prominent innovator, GSK number 2 in R&D. And he said, this is the kind of person we should have got in Dr. Reddy's and it will change the complexion. I just told Dr. Reddy, if you want him, we'll get him. He just laughed and he said, why would he join Dr. Reddy's? He is so well compensated and such a good company. And why do we join? So, but I actually surprised him by that time being able to recruit that very person in Dr. Reddy's as the head of North America. And those are the kind of challenges we face from time to time, but we successfully overcame. And today, it has become not only a very good, place where there are a lot of talents are there, it has become net supplier of a lot of talents in the pharmaceutical industry. For example, Cipla, many people in their top management have been in Dr. Reddy's. They were recruited and groomed, and whether they're CEO, CFO, earlier chief of HR, their supply chain head, many of them. So that's how we have been able to even supply good talents to the industry, and it goes on. So maybe I will stop here, Milind, and wait for any question to elaborate on any specific area.
Thank you, Saumen, for a fascinating peep into your journey. And dear students, now the chat box is open. You can start asking questions to Saumen. And let me lead off with some questions from my own. Saumen, you have had what might be considered as a very rotational stint in your profession. You were trained for something and then you kept moving across the fields. How difficult was it?
No, I always took it as a learning opportunity. Anytime there was any new area which was given to me, some was very natural progression which happened. But I took it as a learning opportunity, and initially one has to really read a lot to really understand that area, and that habits always help. But once you get into a top position, it is more of leadership rather than the functional domain expertise. So if you are a good leader of people, because you can learn a lot from your peers as well as the people who are working with you. So I learned a lot from the people who work with me. I always used to, have some kind of a deal kind of thing. I can give you an example. Even though I was in HR, I was not good in IR because I never handled industrial relations there. So I had one person who was reporting to me who was phenomenally good in IR, but he was not so good in training and development. So I really, had a deal with him. Let him train me on IR, and I will train him on training and development, so that both of us can improve on our skills. And he did really well in T&D, and I also learned IR, which came very handy to me when there were tough situations in Tecumseh, where there was strike, lockout, a lot of things happened. We successfully navigated and we improved productivity and quality phenomenally once we dealt with the IR problem. So it helps. Similarly, in finance, I learned a lot from the people, and most of them are now CFOs in various companies. Now they were working with me. I learned a lot from them, and I always, had the habit of asking questions. Maybe sometimes naive questions. I never, even though I became the CFO for the first time, I used to get very perplexed by the people who used to come from the investment bank. They used to use a lot of jargons. But I used to ask very simple questions to them. And asking 4 or 5 questions, I used to find it is very simple. So I used to ask them, why do you make it so difficult? So they said, this is why we survive in the profession, to make it sounding very, very difficult. So I used to always put very, very simple things. And that's why even in my career, I never went for a very complex, like for example, I never went for a complex derivatives or any such thing in terms of treasury. I also go for a very, very simple, which is, not speculating anything. And I used to have certain kind of rules or guidelines. For example, will not take too much of a debt. I know a lot of my friends as bankers, but I knew that they will always come to you and ask you to take money when you are doing very well. When you do not do well, they will be very difficult. Maybe they will be inaccessible. So that is, I always said our net debt to equity should never go beyond 50%. So like that, similarly hedging, I said we will never do long-term hedging. We will just stop at 18 months for USA and maybe for Russia and other at 12 months. And that also we only try to do 50% of the forecasted cash flow, but balance sheet we do 100%. So like that, very, very simple kind of a guidelines that always help. So every function, for example, managing R&D was very tough if you have to get into the science domain. But if you ask questions and people always are eager to tell what they're doing and to show you, showcase you that this is what they have achieved. So if you ask questions, you really get to understand a lot. Now, this is how I picked up, and being a head of quality or head of manufacturing operation or HR or finance or digital, it really didn't. I never got overwhelmed on any such thing. Very recently, when I was handling biologics business, I again, looked at the business from the perspective of the business leaders had. Really removed some of the constraints or obstacles the people in the R&D they were facing or in the business development they're facing, and then they felt very good. So even though it was a short stint, the people really felt very good that they got a very clear sense of direction.
Asking the question, let me pick up on this aspect of asking simple questions, because I think curiosity and asking perhaps the right questions, maybe not having right answers, but asking right questions is so critical to looking at the world in a different way. Is this skill that you come with already, or is this something that can be created in a classroom setting or in a teaching learning setting?
So the trait that you need to have, that you should be inquisitive. If you are not inquisitive, the appetite for learning something new or absorbing becomes difficult. But then again, the practice that one has to develop is how to observe. Now, there is a difference between observation and seeing. You can watch anything, but when you observe, you watch it or see it with a purpose. Now, let me tell you, for anything, you can create a condition. That is very easy. For safety, for quality, it is very easy to create a condition. Like if you define what are the conditions for good safety, I just need to invest and make it. But for people to comply to safety behavior is not easy. For example, you can put a railing across all the staircase. That is very easy to do. But if you ask people to hold on to the railing while you are climbing down or going up so that you don't trip, that doesn't become easy. But if you are observing people and then interact with them, that you can help them to understand, what could be a potential problem if you don't follow the simple, process or practice. For example, I myself, for several years, never used to wear a seatbelt if I am sitting in the back seat, if somebody else is driving. I used to only wear seatbelt when I am driving myself. It used to come as a reflex. Then I watched a video where I found that actually not wearing a seatbelt can cost you a life, even if you are sitting in the back seat. If you all remember, one of the BJP ministers died just because of a freak accident. He was not wearing the seatbelt while he was sitting in the back. Now, I took a resolution that I will do it. It was not easy transition for me. I told my driver to remind me if he sees that I am not wearing seatbelt. But it took almost 30 days for me for that to become a habit. So you'll have to persist with that, make it as your habit. And then what happens if you develop this habit of observation and interaction, which could be a very facilitative interaction. You cannot dictate, you cannot, all the time put a controlling kind of energy. But if you can help people be aware, understand of consequence, and make them, change themselves. So if you have to change others, first thing you have to change yourself. You should be the one who should be practicing because people watch you. Everybody watches you, particularly if you get into a leadership position, they are watching you very closely. They not only watch what you are doing, they also try to interpret your intent. And as long as they find your intents are genuine and you are trying to do good for the organization, they will always follow you. So asking question, you should take out all your inhibition and ask. This is something, we carry with ourselves by, if we ask a question, somebody will feel, oh, I am not aware of it. So are they looking down upon us? That kind of inhibition one should get out because if you don't ask questions, you don't learn.
So it is to a student of management, it is obvious that good talent and building good teams is essential to success of any enterprise. What qualities do you look for in people when you begin to build a team?
Great question. I think as a leader, you should always try to get people who are smarter and better than you at their job. That's very important. But as a person who is inducting people into your team, I basically look at 4 different capacities in people because ultimately the capacity is important because the potential always is how much of capacity you are utilizing. But if the capacity is not there, then it becomes difficult. So first capacity, as I said, is always about the capacity to learn. If you are not learning, because it is a continuous learning. When I again became a student in ISB and the first 18 months, I had to go through 18 different courses and everywhere there were quizzes and things and they're all international faculty, very good one. And it was a great learning for me even in general management after so many years, even though in between my career, I went to the top tier management courses. But even at this age, it was a fantastic learning for me. So if you don't learn, then it becomes obsolete. You just can't become obsolete because there are always new things which is happening in terms of technology, in terms of different management tools, different ideas. So capacity to learn is a very, very important capacity I focus on. Second is the capacity to think. Now, thinking again, as you know, you can go for a convergent thinking, you can go for a divergent thinking, your analytical ability, your creative ability, both are important. So, but the ability to think, that means, some of the people in the earlier, in our childhood, I remember in our school days or college days, used to really, mug up and reproduce in the exam. Now, those who are not really thinking, being able to solve problems on your own, being able to think very differently, those faculty was not inculcated in our, childhood learning. And nowadays things have changed, and I'm sure all of you have come equipped with that. But that capacity to think become extremely important. The third is very, very important, is the capacity to relate. Now, we are not individual, person. We are not part of team. Now, unless we can relate to people within the team, outside the team, with your customer, with your business partner, then you will not excel in life. So, how do you relate? And that's why the SQ comes very, very important. Your empathy becomes very, very important. But that is the third dimension. And the fourth and last dimension I focus on, because you can have all the three in abundance. When you can be a very good learner, you can be a very good thinker, you can be a very good, interpersonal, relationship-oriented person. But what is your capacity to act? Unless you execute, you can become a good thinker. Then, maybe academics is a better career for you, not the industry. In the industry, it is all about execution. Your, result will tell, your ability. It is not the effort or what you have put in. So you will have to execute and act. So that is the fourth capacity I focus on. So these are the four dimensions I look for in a person, and there are various techniques by which you can assess. And there are behavioral, event-based interviewing techniques. There are psychometric tests. There are many things which can help, but nothing like getting a very good reference check. I mean, you can do a reference check from the people who have worked very closely with a person, and they can tell you very frankly about a person in all those four dimensions.
So learn, think, relate, and act.
Yeah, absolutely.
The full cycle. Okay. Tell us a few life-changing moments that you would have faced in your journey.
Wow. Then, very personally, I like to tell you, once in just before New Year, 31st December, I drove down. From that time I was in Delhi. So I drove down to Haridwar, Rishikesh. I reached somewhere in the late afternoon. But I thought I will go and even see, Vyasi, where river rafting takes place. So again, went there. And then it was a very turbulent, flow of Ganga there. So I went there, I got excited. I found fantastic, nature. And my kids were small. So I just, took off my shoe, went down to the water, and I didn't realize the whole rock and all was very, very slippery. And before I realized, I was, into the Ganges. And because of my reflex, because, I was a sportsman, I am a lot of you, used to remember me as playing soccer and many things. But I also did an advanced leadership training camp in NCC. I was one of the best cadet. I got a gold medal from NCC Director General for that, where I did a rock climbing. So there in rock climbing, we got trained how to hang on to a rock with just a very small, edge of the rock. You can put your fingers and hang on. So that reflex actually worked for me. I just got something to hold on below water, one rock. But I was feeling like almost 20 people are trying to pull me. That was the force of water. So actually the river rafting institute people came running with a rope. My, wife from top actually shouted and her voice cracked, but they came immediately and put a rope and I just came back. I would have died because that's a very rocky area. Most of the people, even if you know swimming, they die because your head crashed against the rock.
Yeah.
And that is the time when I survived. I felt, I must not have fear in my life. I should have, because I would have already, died. So there is nothing to be afraid of that. So that courage really helped me when I faced a very tough situation, very hostile union in Faridabad area. So a lot of these companies, they wondered how in Tecumseh we managed the entire thing so well. And even when my car was attacked and all, but I always had the courage to stand for. Similarly, you asked me that, taking altogether a new area. Of course, I will have to give credit to my superiors who trusted me. Even in Tecumseh, when I was given the operation, I told the chairman, his name was Todd Herrick, an American. I told him, I'm not an engineer. I did physics, but I'm not an engineer. And compressor is a very high-tech component. It is a small price, but it's in terms of mechanical and electrical engineering, very high-tech. The precision is so much there, you can't see with a naked eye. You have to always see with a magnifying glass. So I said, why are you trusting me to be the head of the operation? Now, he just told me I invested $150 million in India. Now, he used a very slang word in a traditional American way. He just said, if you screw it up, I think I have pissed off that. But that is, I'm placing confidence in you. If you do well, the organization will do well. I thought that was a phenomenal confidence someone placed on me. Same question I asked Prasad, who is the co-chairman of Dr. Reddy's, when he was asking me to take over CFO role. I said, I have only worked in finance for 1 year only. Major part of my time was in IT, one in HR, in projects, and in operations. So why are you giving me a CFO role? He said, no, in the board we discuss, and we feel you will do a good job. So just place confidence. So I will have to give credit to their confidence. But also imagine, you know very well as a professional that if you don't do well, you will not survive. It's a very, very tough thing. Either you perform or perish. So that ability to take on challenge also came. I think the life-changing moment for me was that incident where I would have almost died.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So we have a question from Shaurya. She says, sir, what hardships do you have to face in your profession?
I think the most problematic things happen is that, probably you have heard of the person called Sam Pitroda. He was one person I worked very closely while I was in CDOC. So he used to tell me two things people don't teach you in your MBA program. One was the creativity, and second thing is managing politics. And it's actually true. And I learned it when I think in CMC and CDOT, I was almost like a blue-eyed boy of the topmost people. When CMC, CMD also used to love me, Petroda used to love me. He gave me so much of exposure. I even used to go and attend planning commission meeting at such an early age, which helped me a lot. But when I joined iShare, then I really found that unless you are being able to manage the dynamics and politics, you will be an easy target for people to chew you up. So this is one thing I learned in the hard way. And it's almost like even while playing soccer. I remember when I used to play in my youth days, I used to come back several days very hard and bleeding from my leg because people used to hit me. And one day I told my coach, he said, why do I get hurt? He says, because you don't injure others. You don't know how to hit others. So he actually coached me how to hit others. And you won't believe me, that becomes a very good defense for me, because once people knew that, I can injure someone, they were very, very scared of coming anywhere closer to me to injure. So same thing happened here, that you may become apolitical. And in my career, I always tried to be apolitical. But you'll have to always, develop an aptitude to manage dynamics. I think this is one of the things I feel one need to do. But hardship in terms of up and down in the industry, it will always happen. Up and down in your career will happen. So the resilience is a very, very important trait in your characters. You need to be super resilient to stay for the long run and grow.
Great, great. Coming to technology, how do you see the promise of technologies like artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, augmented reality, etc., or virtual reality in the healthcare sector?
Tremendous. And I will tell you, artificial intelligence is a very wide area. You can get into much more closer subset of that, whether you call it machine learning or deep learning. Now that helps tremendously, particularly in our sector, in R&D, in manufacturing. So we have got some of our plants, we call it, digital lighthouse. We have done so many things. I can tell you one area where I started doing things without knowing what it is. And that is on the platform thinking. Now, we invited, Sangeet Pal Chaudhary, who wrote this book on platform regulation. Then I understood what is platform thinking. But I started something called Vikreta Connect, where we got all our business partners locked into a portal. Later on, we make it a mobile application where we said it will help to interact with each other. So you will get to see our RFQ, request for quotation. You can again submit it online. Then once you are selected and you become a business partner, any material that you dispatch, you can see even the status of quality acceptance, your invoice processing, everything. It will become a good interactive piece. But I never looked it as a platform. So once I heard Sangeet and he explained the whole concept, then I thought, oh my God, this is there. I can leverage it as a platform. Because I used to see several banks coming to me and asking for the list of our vendors so that they can offer bill discounting facility to them. So I just simply put one, small kind of a code and program there and put a facility there in that particular interactive place. Say that if anybody, when I offered that, it became tremendous hit. And it was a win-win thing. The people who wanted money, they start getting directly from us, and our treasury also started getting some additional income. Actually, some of the bankers came and told me that you are winning us. We were trying to deal in this area. But I said, if there is a platform which connects, it helps. So today, after that, we started extending it to every area. We got a selection to launch platform. We got a customer connect platform. Even very recently in Dr. Reddy's, we have launched a platform kind of a business, which is called SWAS, which is on an OPD insurance. And so this is spot on. I think all the technology is very, very important. The way world is changing, you have to be ahead of the curve. So you need to learn very fast, adopt it, and actually think creatively to even do better than your competition.
So
we use extensively, whether virtual reality and all the things we do it extensively in our various things.
So how do you see the other companies in your sector, healthcare in general and pharma in particular, adopting the new technologies and investing into these technologies?
So in pharmaceutical sectors, several people told us we were ahead of the curve. Maybe McKinsey, BCG used to tell us. But I think there are companies who started investing quite heavily. In the healthcare, because I am in the board of one hospital group called KIMS, they got recently listed. And they are actually getting into it now, but their possibilities much more. There you can do much more, interesting platform, particularly on a patient platform, so that they can, even when they get cured, they go out of the hospital, there could be an extended kind of a care which the hospitals can provide. So such kind of thing is possible in healthcare industry. I don't think there is too much of progress there so far, but it will happen very fast.
So is this an entrepreneurship space, or is this a corporate funded investment, do it yourself kind of a space?
Which one?
The bringing technology to the healthcare sector, is that a startup kind of a driven phenomenon you see, or the hospitals and the providers will have to just put money and get it done?
See, even for a very established company, we always used to take help of the ecosystem. If you don't do that, then you don't leverage, and it is not very cost effective. So there will be a role of the startups. There will be role of the people who are funding various kind of things. But primarily, it is the company entrepreneur or the management who has to think clearly in terms of adopting this technology and thinking innovatively that how do you really connect to your ultimate customer and grow in your business and expand your business.
We are at 11 o'clock mark, so I will ask only a couple of questions. What made you think of going for PhD at such a late age?
Oh, great question again. Actually, my father always used to creep to my wife that I didn't complete my post graduation or PhD like my other brothers who did it. He said he went and did some diploma from Ahmedabad, not even a full degree, and he didn't get educated. So this was something, and my father was an academician. He was a PhD and delayed. He authored 10 books. He was a head of department of Indology in Vishwavati. So he died several years back at the age of 93, but he wrote his last book when he was 86. So I always thought I need to complete that education. I have to do his PhD, but at the same time, I didn't want that to come on the way in my career. So several times I told the earlier dean of ISB, Ajit Rangnekar, who is also an ex-IIM Ahmedabad, that why aren't you starting something, a scope for doing PhD while we are working? But he never did it. I think his successor later, Professor Rajendra Srivastav, he started in 2018, the first batch. Immediately I enrolled because I always wanted to do it. After I enrolled, I found it is very tough. While doing a full-time job and also go through the grinding of all the course and then doing your dissertation, I really burned a lot of midnight oils. And good that it is behind me. Actually, 15 of us started, only 2 of us completed. The other one has taken a full-fledged academic career. He is now a professor of IIM Udaipur. But I have a lot of commitment in the industry, and I've started my own consulting company as well. So I love teaching, so I will love to do things like what I'm doing with you people right now, more interacting with students, but not take as a full-fledged career. But I think doing this was a tribute to my late father.
So let me end it with a question from student. Shaurya is asking a favorite quote of yours.
Favorite quote?
Favorite quote.
Okay, I will not give a favorite quote of someone else, but what once I told a journalist and he printed in the newspaper what I said, I will say that is the most favorite one. And I said anybody at any level can make a huge difference in the organization. And I believe in it. I believe in it. It could be anyone. It could be someone at your shop floor. It could be someone in the field. It could be someone in the lab. They can make a huge difference. You have to only tap those, creative potentials.
So, dear students, that seems like a perfect note and a message from the entire session that each one of you can make a difference. You just have to have courage, and you just have to have belief in yourself, generate trust about yourself. If you trust people, people will trust you, and be transparent. Work hard, and the 4 capacities that if you can develop, which is learn, think, relate, and act, you would find that these will act as your companions as you develop your professional careers and make a difference in whatever walk of life you go forward. Let us thank Dr. Saumen Chakraborty to have spent this time with us and given us wonderful insights. Thank you, Saumen. And we will stay connected. We will hope to see you on the campus when all this COVID pandemic blows over.
Thank you, Millie. Thank you for inviting me to interact with your students. Unfortunately, in a virtual thing, you really don't have the pleasure. I can't see you in people's faces, but would love to go and visit your campus sometime. Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care.